So what do you say we learned something? What did we learn last week? We learned about what? Media queries? Cool. What else? Kind of hard, huh? Remember it all? Yeah, Viewport was a big part of it. And the pixels, all that pixel stuff. Device-independent pixels. So we have physical pixels, we have device-independent pixels, and we have CSS pixels. And the meta viewport name is equal to viewport. And what's the rest of that? Name equals viewport, and content equals width equals device width, initial scale 1. So the viewport width equals the device width. And the initial scale is 1. What's initial scale 1 mean? Somebody explain that to me. Okay, turn your monitor sideways, please, for just a little while. Let's focus in on this. Somebody explain this tag to me. What does that tag do?
Jeremy said he would.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Give it a go.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So it sets the width of the page to the device width. I know initial scale. I know if you put it on 2, it's going to zoom it in.
Yeah.
On 1, is it mapping the device independent pixels to the pixels on the screen at the default ratio?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Device.
Anybody else want to take a crack at explaining it? We should know everything that we put in our code, what it does. That should be like the goal, at least for me. I want to understand it. I want to understand thoroughly. Be a good engineer. Know why I'm putting something in, not just put it in. So viewport is the port through which you view the web page. Often we're just looking at a web page through a browser window. That's the viewport. So here's my viewport right now. Right now my viewport is the whole screen, but I'm changing it, right? My viewport's less than the screen. So that's the port through which I'm viewing the web page. And when we do mobile, we say viewport width equals device width. And so the width of the viewport is equal to the device width, the width of the device. And then on mobile devices, they have physical pixels. And then because of pixel density and retina displays and other phone manufacturers having higher pixel densities, one physical pixel no longer maps to a pixel that we use. So many physical pixels can make up a displayed pixel, device-independent pixel. So we have physical pixels and then device-independent pixels. So like a retina display, or my Nexus 5 has 3 physical pixels for every device-independent pixel. And the device-independent pixels, I think of them as like, oh, those are the pixels that we actually are using. Like that's the displayed pixel. Has 3 physical pixels making up that device-independent pixel. But those 3 physical pixels, when I'm like saying, hey, this is 1 pixel wide for a border, that's going to be 1 device-independent pixel. So we have physical pixels, we have device-independent pixels, and we have CSS pixels. So I might have in my CSS .200 pixel width, height, 200 pixel height, And then the box model has the content, and what's around the content? Padding, and what's around the padding? Border, and what's around the border? That's not quite going to do it. Margin. And then I could do a border, 1 pic solid red. 1 pic solid red. So that's CSS pixel when I'm saying 1 pic solid red. And that will map to a device independent pixel on mobile. Kind of interesting to experiment with, like what is the resolution of my screen? Displays. And it doesn't show me if it's just right here, but if I go to scaled, it doesn't show me either. I thought it gave me, oh, I just lost you guys. Built-in Retina display. Go back. Best for. There we go. How do you see? How do I even get rid of this window? Best for Creston. There we go. That's weird. Open up 2 windows.
It's because you have 2 displays.
How do I see? It's like 1728.
I think if you go up to the apple in the left-hand corner and hit the...
Is that where it gives it to me? Not this Mac.
Displays.
Displays. Perfect. Built-in display, Creston display, 2880 by 1800. So which is my width and which is my height? 2880, right? I think this is a Retina display because when I record this in Camtasia, like here's a video I just recorded. See what happens. I'm recording that, and when I go into edit, something's dying over here. It's all right. I've got a width of 1920 by 1080 on that width and height. Cancel. That should give me an incorrect width. Edit. Oh, I have to click on this. There we go. Edit. Adjust canvas. Still 1920. Anyhow. Do you want to quit and delete the current recording? Cancel. I want to keep that current recording. So it told me that my width was 2800. All right, we saw that. About this Mac. Displays. 2880. So when I say 2880 in CSS pixels, I just went off the page. So my CSS pixels aren't mapping to the screen, even though the screen said 2880 pixels. So the difference there, here, in this example, is that I've got physical pixels 2880, but then, and my CSS pixels, when I say 2880, right? But then my display pixels, the device independent pixels, they aren't. So physical pixels, 2880. But what's being displayed is less than that. Because if it was 2880 being displayed, I would just perfectly fill up that screen. What I do to fill that in, to fill that div in with color, just to make it a little nicer? Background color. All right, so let's see if it's 1920. Is it showing me 1920 pixels? Pretty close, but still, I got a scroll bar. So is it showing me 1800? So it's somewhere between 1800 and 1920 that are actually being displayed. So my computer's saying you have 2,880 pixels. Those are the physical pixels. But in CSS, when I say, okay, put this over 2,880 pixels, it's like, no, that's more than the screen. It's bigger than the screen. So I have a retina display here where physical pixels don't map to the pixels that could actually be used. So I think of those as like the displayable pixels, right? Device-independent pixels.
Oh, it's also good you don't have a reset, because it resets the CSS itself as well, right? That's part of that. Because there's standard CSS apply.
So I have a little padding and border and margin and everything. A little bit, yeah.
But your point's well made.
So this tag here, meta viewport width equals device width. So we have the physical pixels, we have the device independent pixels, we have CSS pixels. And the CSS pixels, right, if I had initial scale equals 2, I would have 2 device independent pixels for each CSS pixel. So if I said 360 CSS pixels, and my screen had 360 device independent pixels, but I said, you know, hey, initial scale equals 2, I've zoomed into 2. So every CSS pixel, I'm going to use 2 device independent pixels. And so at 180 CSS pixels, I've used up 360 device independent pixels. So it's only going to show 180 of my CSS pixels. It's a little bit to wrap one's head around. But the main thing you want to take away, do you guys understand this concept of physical pixels and device independent pixels and pixel density and retina displays? You understand that? Do you?
Not completely.
Not completely.
I understand they're different and they all have their place, but making sense of it's still far.
Yeah, me too. A little bit. Less so. Because I've been studying it some. But so then we also saw how to see that on mobile. So we could click that little mobile icon and then reload. So here I have Apple iPhone, which has a resolution of 320 by 568. And they call it device pixel ratio of 2. So for every 2 physical pixels, there's going to be 1 device independent pixel. So if I made my thing 320 pixels, right, and we could do what Rio said, and we could do margin 0, padding 0, border 0, but then we're resetting margin and border. So just put our padding to 0. I guess we want to do that on everything. And we'll make this 320 pixels wide. And we have meta viewport, scale equals 1, CSS, width 320 pixels. Why is it still not fitting? Margin, padding, border. Oh, thank you. So a little bit of wiggle, not much, but pretty much fits. Maybe because of that border. No wiggle. So 320 pixels if we had 318. And not put it in the center. So like 1 pixel on each side, right? That's 320 pixels. That's the viewport. So those are device independent pixels that we're seeing right there. But the physical pixels on the iPhone 5, how do they market it? You're getting 640 pixels. Those are the physical pixels. But in reality, what are you showing? You're showing 320 pixels. Because for every physical pixel, we have one device-independent pixel.
Say that last line you just said.
For every physical, I don't know what I said. Ah. So when we look at the iPhone resolution that they sell it to us for, you get 640 pixels. Those are the physical pixels. But when we look at how many actually are being used or displayed, 320. That's because we have 2 physical pixels for every displayed pixel.
And then CSS pixels, it's 3.
No, right here it's 2 still. CSS pixels, because we said, because a CSS pixel can be like, how do you want to map these to the device-independent pixels?
Okay.
And so right now we are mapping them 1 to 1, right? So for each CSS pixel, which would be this, use up 1 device-independent pixel.
And maybe when we change the CSS.
I'm sorry,
Oh
Sarah.
no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does it change with each device?
Yeah. So the physical pixels change with each device. So Nexus 5 resolution is 1920 by 1080. That's my resolution, so 1080. And Nexus 5 here is 360 by 567. 360 by 567, 360, 360. And it's got, for every 3 physical pixels, 1 device-independent pixel. So 360 times 3 is 900, plus 180 is 1080. So when they sell it to me, you have 1080 resolution. You have that many pixels. That's how many pixels we're giving you. All right, that's the width. But what's being displayed is 360. And with the iPhone, what were we just looking at? iPhone 5? iPhone 5 was 320. All right, so they have a different pixel density. Mine has 3 physical pixels for each device-independent pixel. And they have different device-independent pixels. And then the CSS pixels, we map them to the device-independent pixels with this right here. So if I change this to 2, for each of my CSS pixels, and I've got 318 CSS pixels, that's what I asked for. 318 CSS pixels. I've changed, I'm going to refresh this now. I just changed it to, maybe I have to do a complete reload. There we go. For each of my CSS pixels, use up 2 device-independent pixels. Well, if I'm displaying 318 CSS pixels, multiply that by 2, because I'm using 2 device-independent pixels for each CSS pixel. So multiply my CSS pixels by 2, and that shows me how many device-independent pixels my CSS is asking to take up. So 2 times 318 is 636. I only have 360 here, right? So, you know, by the time I've used 360, I've only shown 180 CSS pixels because each CSS pixel takes up 2 device-independent pixels. So 180 times 2 is 360. So it's like I've zoomed in.
Does it affect the quality of the picture?
I don't know if you'd pixelate, if you're zooming in on an image that way. I imagine, because you're kind of getting closer to it. If we did 0.5, when you do that, often you have to reload for whatever reason, at least I do. 0.5, right? So for each CSS pixel, take up half of a device-independent pixel. I don't know. Just kind of fun to look at. So that's just a review of Meta Viewport. How many people that kind of helped you a little bit? Sweet. I totally think that that's helpful. And then let's do a little bit of a review on media queries, if we learn that. So we did media queries, font boosting, and Meta Viewport. And so let's look at, like, I guess just this first example. So what's that media query do? Somebody explain that media query to me.
900 pixels, it turns the font red.
900 pixels up or down? And up or down?
Up.
900 pixels up. How many people are bettors? Gamblers. How many people say 900 pixels up? Raise your hand. How many people say 900 pixels down? Huh? How many people don't know? So min width is at a minimum. Width 900 pixels up. It's totally backwards. It's like, I don't know why they didn't come up with better syntax for that. They should have called it from here up, from here down. And so we could look at that, right, this file, and just make sure, because it's confusing enough for me that I'm like, did I get that right? So we're greater than 900 pixels, we're less than 900 pixels. So I'm read at 900 pixels or more. And on the other side, up to 900 pixels, the maximum width, right, we'll make it red. So 0 to 900 is what that one does. And then I think the recommended way to include media queries is the way I recommend to you this way, or is it this way? Which way do I recommend? How many people think it's better to do it this way? How many people think it's better to do it this way? That way. Yeah, why? I like it better on the right. Why?
Keep your style sheets independent of one another.
Yeah, because it allows you to have a little bit more modularity in your code, keeping your style sheets independent of each other. And also with HTTP 2, making multiple requests is no longer a performance hit. And so, you know what? Just instead of trying to put everything into one file and only make one request to the server, you know, just break it up and just ask for whatever files you need and don't bring down any more than you don't need. So if it's all on one page, it's harder to read, and you're bringing down code you don't need for an entire site. If you're just like, load all this. I don't know, there might be a performance thing with, I think it's still better that way. So we're going to learn about units of measurement today. And we're also going to see Flexbox examples. So it's basically going to just be like hang out and let's look at code and talk about it and see what's happening and play with it and see how it changes. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to start a new video to do that.